All right, we are back and better than ever. Woohoo! Sorry about that. I need to get a new Ethernet cord because the one I have is so flimsy. I touched like I was moving my mouse and it hit the Ethernet cord and the Ethernet cord disconnected. That's why we went offline. So it was not the Russians, wasn't coronavirus. It was just my flimsy Ethernet cord. So sorry about that. I forget where I was. I'm going to give it just a couple minutes here to get the audience back up a little bit because we are going to show you a video from Jen. Then we're going to air a special report. We got a lot of good stuff coming, on the live stream here. As a reminder, the Democratic debate tonight is at 8 o'clock between Bernard Sanders and Joe Biden. So we will be live after the Democratic Party debate tonight. I think the debate starts at 8, so it should be over by 10 o'clock or so. So definitely come back here for debate recap. Also, we were on a roll. We were on a roll before the live stream went down. So definitely sign up as a Status Coup member. We are now at 1,835. So 15 members away from hitting that so wonderful 1,850 mark. Once we hit 1,850, 2,000's in our sight. That's 150 members away. So if you're not a Status Coup member yet, I kindly suggest let's go. Get with the program. statuscoup.com/join. Sign up as a member for as low as $5 a month. It is on CNN, the debate tonight, so I would not expect moderators to be fair. It's on CNN at 8 o'clock. I think it's CNN with Univision is doing the debate. Jorge Ramos, sorry. Jorge Ramos was supposed to be one of the moderators tonight, but he came down or was in contact with somebody who, I don't know if he was in contact with somebody that had coronavirus or what the issue was, but he either directly or indirectly came in contact with someone with coronavirus, so he has been removed as a moderator. I do not know who is replacing him. But we obviously know CNN protects Joe Biden. Univision might be a little bit fairer, particularly since Bernie Sanders is doing so wonderfully among Latinos. So we will see. Quick reminder, since we just have to restart the live stream, make sure you press that like button. Got 330 people watching already. 82 of you have pressed that like button. I need another 200 of you. Over 200 more of you. Smash that like button. It's a thumbs up button right under the live stream. The more people that smash that like button, the more people that will see this live stream. And we're about to air a really great report for you from a freelance journalist in California. So before the live stream got disconnected, I was talking about it is insanely irresponsible to hold these primaries on Tuesday. Honestly, I think both candidates will be harmed by the primaries going on as continued. If you put a gun to my head, I think Biden might be screwed more than Bernie because obviously Biden depends on older people to come out. I think a lot more older people above the age of 50 will be hesitant to come out because of coronavirus, and their age makes them a lot more at risk than somebody under 40, let's say. But the bottom line is you do not want, as a pandemic is spreading, a highly deadly viral virus, you don't want people standing right next to each other online, outside, and coming into contact with people who might be carrying coronavirus and don't even know it, that they're carrying it. It's highly reckless. Even if it would depress turnout more for Biden versus Bernie, it's not about the election. It's about public health. So I think right now people should be phone banking. Yes, phone bank, do all the things you can online, but I think it's totally reckless. I think you're going to get a lot more people at risk to get infected. And the numbers are lower right now as far as the death count. But look at Italy. The numbers were low, and then like 5 days later, they were astronomical. This thing spreads fast. It spreads fast. So with that, I want to show you, because this was really remarkable, I want to show you a video of an Arizona election official. And a lot of people have kind of theories about what exactly, why this Arizona official broke down the way he did, but this is election day director of Maricopa County. Maricopa County, if you haven't been paying attention, Maricopa County has shut down, is eliminating over a third of their voting locations. So Maricopa County in Arizona, which has 4.4 million people living there, has eliminated a third of voting locations. So now for 4.4 million, they'll only have 151 polling locations open on Tuesday if the primary goes forward. So this was the election day director with Maricopa County trying to explain all of this. And I mean, he clearly was either having an attack of consciousness, is wildly stressed out or something, because he was really having a rough time while trying to communicate about the closings of these poll stations. Let's take a look.
To be able to reduce the number of voting locations that we would then be, whether those be cleaning supplies, and then we also had some polling approved election day and emergency voting plan. But in the last several weeks, there have been some issues with us being able to identify enough supplies, whether those be cleaning supplies, and then we also had some polling locations fall out over the last few weeks. So last night with the board, we made the board made a decisive action to approve a plan and give me the direction to be able to reduce the number of voting locations that we would then be able to provide those voters and those voting locations with the supplies they need, those cleaning supplies, those sanitation supplies that we can then disinfect those high-touch surfaces in those polling locations. So those voters, if they wanted to vote in person, they'd be able to have that polling location be available to them, and then our poll workers would be able to make sure that all those high-touch surfaces were cleaned. So what this plan does is that we had 229 polling locations available prior to the plan, and then after the board's vote, I went and performed an analysis to make sure that all those voters had 151 vote anywhere vote centers. This now, we're taking this from those voters had 41 voting locations before these 151. Now they have 151 vote locations that they can choose from. And then with that, we're also going to be providing those voters with the options and the ability to, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, first, I want to remind the public that the ever-changing world that we are living in is creating some stress for all of us, but we want to just make the voter assured that we are going full speed on having a great election as we are tasked to do. So I'd like
Holy shit, thing's red.
Well, yeah, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. I mean, say what you want. Some people have a theory that election supervisor in Maricopa County had a attack of consciousness because this is clear voter suppression, election fraud. Some people think it was related to an attack of consciousness because election officials in Arizona, Maricopa County, are putting voters at risk. Whichever way you slice it, whether he is having an attack of consciousness because this is obviously going to suppress the vote in Arizona, particularly Arizona has a lot of Latinos, which will be impacted. When you close this many polling places, it makes it a much further drive to find the polling location, and a lot of people then don't go drive that distance. It is incredibly hard also to figure out where the polling location has been moved to in a lot of these places. When I was on the ground in South Carolina, Polling locations were changed at the last minute within a few days of the South Carolina primary. And when people went to the polling locations that they normally went to, it said this polling location has been moved, and it didn't even give the new location. So I think, listen, I can't get in his head. I don't know what is causing him that obvious stress. It's either that he sees like, oh, we're rigging this thing here, and I can't stand here ethically as a person with, if he has a conscience, I can't stand here with a clear conscience and say this is all dandy because this is obvious voter suppression, closing all these polling places. 4.4 million people, 4.4 million people live in Maricopa County in Arizona. It's one of the biggest counties in America. And they're closing a third of the locations. 151 polling locations for 4.4 million. Speaking of people during a deadly pandemic being close to each other, you're going to have crazy long lines just in that county because of all these polling locations that have been closed. So I have no idea which is it. Is he standing there obviously morally have a hard time morally to condone closing all these polling locations because of the clearly suppressive impact? Or is it that he can't stand there and say everything's fine, let's go on and hold these elections when there's a virus going around? It's probably a mix of both, to tell you the truth. It's probably a mix of both. And what was even more egregious there is this guy having an attack of consciousness, and then the guy who replaced him basically like, oh, we live in an ever-changing society and all will be fine. All will not be fine. You should not have people standing on a line with each other, they might not be touching each other, but just being in close distance with one another could transmit coronavirus. It's insane. And what I was saying before the live stream went down, Jordan, if you don't suffer from anxiety from public speaking, you can't understand what was happening. I don't think that was anxiety from public speaking. That's an election official. They generally have had to publicly speak before. It doesn't seem to me that was just somebody who has anxiety speaking in public. It seems to me he was having an attack of consciousness, not anxiety. Could be wrong. I can't get in his head, but he's an elected official. So generally you have to speak publicly if you're an elected official. 800 people watching right now. Only 296 of you have pressed that like button. I know I'm asking you to press that like button again. Smash that like button. We need another 500 people to press that like button. Lickety split. It's the thumbs up button right under the live stream. Let's get the audience back over 1,000. Like. And keep signing up. We are right now 15 members away. This members graphic is a little outdated. We are at 1,835 members. Keep signing up. I'd love to get another 15 members before we end today. And again, we will be live again tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern time after the CNN debate. So we will be live and ready to rock and roll right after the debate, whether my new neighbors like it or not. Woohoo! Maybe they'll come on. We'll see. Oh, no, we don't want them to come on. We don't want to be around people right now. And if you sign up, statuscoup.com/join, become a member for as low as an overpriced cup of coffee a month, you will get invited to our members call tomorrow night. It's a video call on Zoom. You don't have to be on video, but we really, really, really want as many of you to join us as possible. Sign up today or tomorrow, and you will get the link to join us on our monthly members call with Jen and I. So, what I was saying, do you really think if the roles were reversed and Bernie Sanders was up by 100 pledged delegates over Joe Biden, and the next 4 states coming in 2 days during a pandemic were not looking so hot for Joe Biden? Bernie Sanders was up by 40 points in Florida, which some of these polls show right now. Bernie Sanders was up in Illinois. Bernie Sanders was up in Ohio. Bernie Sanders was up in Arizona. Do you really, really think that the Democratic National Committee and the Democratic Party would be saying, all systems go, let's hold these primaries? Do you really think that the Democratic Party would be endangering the lives of voters by keeping these 4 primaries on schedule on March 17th when they could easily just move them to May with all these other primaries? Thank you for the super chat. €5 from Jerome. YouTube link, case against Biden. Appreciate it. Not going to play the link right now, but appreciate it. By the way, I just want to make a point to viewers. I don't mean this in a nasty way, but I just got to keep it real. Jen and I get so many emails and we try to read all of them. But for people who just email and say, Jordan, call me and give your number, I'm not going to call you. Like, there's one individual, might be a wonderful person, who's emailed Jen and I like 10 times saying, I know you're busy, but call me. It's super important with your number. Do you know how many emails I get? And Jen gets? It's not just emails. We get messages on Facebook, on Twitter. We have a lot of people messaging us urgent things that they want us to look at. We're only 2 people, and if you send an email like call me and giving your number without explaining what it is you want to talk about, we're probably not going to get back to you. And you're probably a kook, to be honest with you. So just keep it real. Send us an email with information. Preferably, accurate, verifiable information. But just random people emailing, hey, call me right away. Here's my number. Not going to call you. Love you anyway. So, of course, if Bernie Sanders was in the lead, of course, if the next 4 states looked like they would not go well for Joe Biden, they would be saying we need to pause all elections right now. We don't want to put people at risk. But because Joe Biden is in the lead, call me, I have a P tape. Because Joe Biden is in the lead, because the next 4 states, frankly, is looking good for Joe Biden, they are willing to put the voters at risk to basically just end this thing for Joe Biden. That is sociopathic. Is Tom Perez and the Democratic National Committee smarter than the Center for Disease Control? Are they smarter than, Health and Human Services? Are they smarter than like governors and mayors? Do they know something about coronavirus and health that the people saying stay in your home don't know? Because the election officials from Maricopa County and Ohio and Florida and Illinois, they're following the lead. They're following the lead of the DNC. They're following the lead of the DNC. Where is Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer? They should be saying, no, we should not be having these elections. And by the way, Bernie Sanders can't publicly say that. He would be hammered for publicly saying that because they would be making it seem that he doesn't want to have these elections because he knows he's going to lose. He's in a no-win position. If he says we should postpone these elections, it's the responsible thing to do, but they would pin him as trying to prevent democracy, trying to stop Joe Biden's momentum. So Bernie Sanders can't publicly say that because they would hammer him. Lightning Jim, $5, using this super chat to double my membership donation this month. God bless you, Lightning Jim. Love you, Lightning Jim. You know what's also wrong? I hate when you're on a live stream and you're going live for 2 hours and you're hungry, and then your girlfriend off camera is eating something that smells delicious. She's just teasing me with this meal because I'm hungry.
It's my mom's leftovers. I could heat you up some.
Thank you, love. No thanks, though. I'll have something else. Anyway, so, yeah, this is bullshit. The DNC is literally putting people's lives at risk, literally putting voters' lives at risk to try and win this election for Joe Biden. And if you missed the audio that I played earlier from Michael Moore's podcast, literally Michael Moore is speaking with Democratic Party insiders who are all off camera, not on the record, saying, yeah, there's something wrong with Joe Biden. There's something wrong with Joe Biden. So how fucked up is that, excuse my French, that the DNC, all the Democratic insiders, they know something's not well in Joe Biden's head, and they are literally willing to risk the voters during a pandemic to just end this thing We got to put Bernie out of his misery. We got to end his campaign, even if it means putting forward a whatever you want to call it, patient against Donald Trump. Somebody cognitively not all there. Let's just end it now. Let Biden nap, rest up. Let him name his vice president early, and maybe that will help cover his mental cognitive deficiencies. I've never seen something more irresponsible in my life. And you want to know something? Literally, I'm not dramatizing this, literally. If the Ohio primary, Florida primary, Illinois primary, Arizona primary go on as scheduled on Tuesday, do not be surprised when there is an increase, an uptick in people contracting coronavirus in those states. And who will be responsible for that? Not Donald Trump. It'll be the Democratic Party, the DNC. Joe Biden is not leading on this, saying we should postpone this. This is literally playing with corona fire. And the last thing I want to get to before we get to this amazing 1 hour report we have. We have a new member? Who's the new member? Marshall. Welcome, new Status Coup member, Marshall. We are now at 1,836. 1,835 members. So we are 15 members away. Just 15 members away from 1,850. And then our 2,000 is closer in our sights. Keep signing up. I definitely think you're going to want to sign up when we play this original report. By the way, something Jen and I are doing now, we want to let you know. Not with everybody, with journalists that we know that we could verify their information, that kind of thing. We are going to be starting a little bit more to have freelance journalists from around the country do reports for us, because we obviously can't cover everything. We don't want to just bring any person off the street, because we can't verify all of their information. But we want people that we trust, that we know practice good journalism, that check their facts and all that stuff. We're going to start having a little bit more content from other journalists who might not have a platform like we have to let their work through. So in a few minutes, we're going to air Tina Desiree Berg's wonderful report on the suppression and, frankly, what looks like fraud to me going on in California, which obviously California is the top state as far as delegates. So if Bernie's the Democratic Party wanted to stop Bernie in California, but most importantly, if he's going to win, just minimize the lead, minimize the number of delegates he could get. And that's what it looks like is going on in California. But before that, I just want to go over one more thing, and it's all you need to know about the Democratic Party. Don't get me wrong. The individual most responsible for this disastrous response to the coronavirus is President Trump. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, it's not like Nancy Pelosi is more responsible than Donald Trump. However, the response from the Democratic Party is laughable. Laughable. And this is what you would get if you had a President Biden. This is from the New York Times, of all places, who, generally speaking, protects Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party. There's a giant hole in Pelosi's coronavirus bill. The legislation passed by the House doesn't actually guarantee paid sick leave to most American workers. Shocker. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Friday night celebrated the coronavirus legislation that passed early Saturday as providing paid sick leave to American workers affected by the pandemic. She neglected to mention the fine print. Interesting. In fact, the bill guarantees sick leave only to about 20% of workers. 20%. Big employers like McDonald's and Amazon are not required to provide any sick leave, while companies with fewer than 50 employees can seek hardship exemptions from the Trump administration. If you are sick, stay home. Vice President Mike Pence said at a news conference on Saturday afternoon, "You're not going to miss a paycheck." But that's simply not true. Sick workers should stay home, but there is no guarantee in the emergency legislation that most of them will get paid. The White House and congressional Republicans who insisted on the exemptions as the price of bipartisan support for the legislation bear the primary responsibility for the indefensible decision to prioritize corporate profits in the midst of a public health emergency. Instead of pressing executives to support a comprehensive sick leave law, President Trump held a Rose Garden pep rally for corporate America on Friday afternoon, showering praise on the chief executives of big employers including Walmart, Target, and Walgreens. But House Democrats also failed to act in the public interest. Paying sick workers to stay at home is both good policy and good politics. Why not pass a bill that required all employers to provide paid sick leave and then force Republicans to explain their objections to the public? Yes! The same exact thing can be said for why not push for Medicare for all. Put Republicans on the defensive to explain why they think the richest country in the world should not guarantee health care as a human right. But the Democrats never do that because their donors won't let them, folks. The bill does require some employers to provide full-time workers with up to 10 days of paid leave, but the requirement does not apply to the nation's largest employers, companies with 500 or more workers who together employ roughly 54% of all workers. After a Waffle House employee tested positive for the coronavirus earlier this month, the company refused to promise it would pay other sick workers to stay home. Now, under the new bill, it would qualify for the big company exception. Would Ms. Pelosi please explain why the House decided not to require Waffle House to protect its workers and customers by paying for sick leave? The legislation also provides some compensation for workers who need to take longer leaves under the Family and Medical Leave Act, but this too excludes workers at big companies. And the bill allows the Labor Department to grant hardship exemptions to businesses with fewer than 50 employees. That category includes another 26% of the workforce, meaning that fully 80% of workers may not be able to cash in on Ms. Pelosi's rhetoric. I'm not going to read the whole thing. The bottom line is the Democratic Party, and this is the Democratic Party of Bill Clinton, of Hillary Clinton, of Barack Obama, and of Joe Biden. This is what they do. They declare crumbs as cake. They declare crumbs as some victory for the working man and women of America. This bill will not help the majority of working people. And you can't just blame it on Trump and say, well, Trump and the Republicans would only give us X. You take the fight to the American people. You take the fight to the Republican Party. You make clear the Republicans will not do this. They will not go all the way. They will not guarantee paid sick leave for everybody. They will not guarantee cash payments too, because not every employer, like for example, my mom and dad own a small business. They have way less than 50 employees. They might have 6. If they had to provide paid sick leave without their business being open, it could really harm their business, and a lot of small businesses like it. So those business owners need to be helped out by the government through direct cash payments. So it's not just the workers. There are employers that are not Jeff Bezos that can't afford paid sick leave to all workers because of a pandemic and need economic restitution for those employers too. It goes both ways. But the Democratic Party is not going to go at the Republican Party, is not going to make the case that Republicans are evil for not doing this. Why? Because they share the same exact donors. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to call out Jeff Bezos. They don't want to call out the Waltons of Walmart. They don't want to call out the CEOs of Target. They don't want to call out the CEOs of Whole Foods that literally is telling their their healthy employees right now, give as a gift your vacation time, if you're healthy, to your sick colleagues at Whole Foods. Give your vacation time up to them so they don't lose money. No, you, the CEO, should be fucking paying their sick leave. By the way, it extends to basketball leagues. You have athletes like in the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers player Kevin Love is donating $100,000 to pay towards arena workers for the Cleveland Cavaliers, HR workers. You know, it's more than just the basketball players. There's a whole list of workers that play for these basketball teams. Why are these players make way too much money anyway, but why is it that the player is having to pledge $100,000 when the multi-billionaire owner should be paying for these workers' sick leave. Why? Because as I've always said, we live in the United Corporations of America. The donors run the shots. Joe Biden as president would not be calling the shots. Maybe on foreign policy he would, which is also scary, but not on economic issues. It's what the donors will allow them to do. And Nancy Pelosi, this progressive she claims to be. By the way, welcome new Status Coup member Tessa. Woohoo! We are now at 1,836 members. That would be 14 members away from 1,850. Can I get another 14 of you? Sign on the bottom line, statuscoup.com/join. Join us for as low as $5 a month, and we look forward if you become a member today or tomorrow. Sign up before our members call, which is at 7:30 Eastern time tomorrow night, 4:30 Pacific time. And if you sign up before then, you'll get the link to join our members call, which is going to be a lot of fun tomorrow night. So I got one more thing to do before airing Tina's great report on the California voter suppression going on. So I want to make clear a few things. If you remember my work from the Young Turks, we cover election fraud here and we cover voter suppression here because we have gotten a lot of emails and messages. Ooh, welcome new member Amadou. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Amadou? Welcome new member Amadou. We are now at 1,837 members. That's 13 members away from 1,850. By the way, what I love, and Jen, I know you love this too, we're getting a lot of new members signing up outside of the United States. Where our audience is predominantly in the United States, but we have a lot of international members too in the UK, in Canada, in other South America. So Status Coup is going big time, baby. We are reaching a broader audience than just the United Corporations of America. 13 members away from 1,850. Keep signing up, statuscoup.com/join. So we've gotten a lot of messages on Twitter, on Facebook, email. Jordan, look at the exit poll discrepancies between what the exit polls are in Michigan and other places versus what the actual end results were, because the discrepancies are very large. I don't want to make excuses, but I actually was moving the last few days, and the move has not gone so well. That's another story for another day. So I've been a little busy dealing with our move. Jen just got back from traveling. She was covering the Michigan primary. She has 2 children. So unfortunately, we can't always get to things as soon as you want them, but we're trying. So I haven't really been able to look into the exit poll discrepancies, but we don't want you to think we're not aware of some of the discrepancies. So Jen did a short video to explain to you what we know is fact, but also what we don't know. We do think there are some outlets that are running with this and citing it as election fraud as fact without fully providing all the facts. So we're not going to just do things just for clicks. If we did, we'd probably be much, much more successful. But we are only going to report things that we, with a certain certitude, know to be facts. So let Jen explain to you what we know and what we don't know, and Jen and I are both going to be looking into it more. Here's Jen.
Hey guys, Jen Dice here with Status Coup, and I'm here with a quick update because a lot of you have questions about exit polling. A lot of you have been sending us one site in particular, so we wanted to address these questions. We will do a fuller report as we get more information, as we get more reporting, but we thought it would be doing a disservice to you to not comment on it at all. So what I am talking about is this site in particular. This is done by one person, to my knowledge, TDMS Research, and I will mispronounce this name. I am so sorry. Theodore de Macedo Soares. So what this guy does is take exit polling information from the primaries and compare it to actual results. So he's done it for Michigan, California, Vermont, Texas, Massachusetts, and on and on. And as you can see here, he has done this since 2016. So you might say, okay, Status Coup, why don't you, Jen, why don't you or Jordan just go through this guy's report and report on what everyone else is? And when I say everyone else, I just mean other independent media sources are reporting based on this information. And I just have to say we don't have enough information to report based on this right now. We will be contacting this person to get a feel for their credentials, their background, their methodology, and everything, because we feel like it's important to do our journalistic duty. We feel that it is our journalistic duty to fully vet this, because if what is reported here and is reported by other independent media sources is true, then basically they would be stealing our elections by manipulating actual votes in the voting machines, in the voting booths, or however each of these primaries vote. So it's a hugely serious allegation, and we can't just go out and say that they are doing this. So one of the reasons why we can't just report based on this one guy, based on this one website, and you are welcome to look at it yourself. Again, this is a short update, so I'm not going to go through all of it, or really any of it until we can fully vet it. But you can go to tdmsresearch.com and take a look for yourself at the exit poll versus reported vote count for each of these primaries. So he does cite his sources. He does give a lot of information, which is a good sign. But his about page doesn't give us much kind of information right now, or really any, about his credentials, about who he is, about how he does things, about who really backs him. He talks about in 2016 that the website originated by the request of colleagues in the election integrity movement to make up his work on the 2016 presidential primaries easily accessible. So that's well and good. It seems like, to me, a valiant effort. But as a journalist, we really have to vet information. So for all of you who are sending us this information on these exit polls, having such high discrepancies, we hear you, we see you, we are on it. We will be talking to this person if he will speak with us. We will get more of his background, his methodology, his funding if needed. We just want to know as much information as we can, because there are, some nefarious actors out there, and we've run into some people in the election security and election integrity spaces who are not exactly above board and who have their own agenda at play. So that's what we don't want to fall into. I'm not saying anything negative about any of the other independent media who has already reported this. I'm just saying that's not us. We are not reporting this. We are just telling you that we are looking into it. So I think it's really important, in addition to telling you that we will be on it, it's really important to understand that just because we aren't so sure about the the exit poll discrepancies, there are a lot of issues otherwise. I think that we can say with 100% certainty, that's 100% certainty, that there is rampant voter suppression going on. They may not be manipulating the vote tallies at the machine level, but they are suppressing the vote. And they are suppressing the vote specifically for progressives and Bernie Sanders non-establishment voters. Bernie Sanders has said so himself. Bernie Sanders calls long lines at Michigan polling stations an outrage, suggests Dems are engaging in voter suppression. So again, a short report here. I'm not going to go through it, but the voter suppression, look at these long lines. This is North Dakota. This is happening everywhere. Bernie says we need to end voter suppression and make it easier for people to vote, not harder. We need automatic voter registration. We need to make Election Day a national holiday. We need to end gerrymandering, and we need to restore the Voting Rights Act. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has said rampant voter suppression contributed to Sanders' loss in Michigan. She said, well, I think one thing that isn't being talked about is the rampant voter suppression in this country. Ocasio-Cortez told Fox News' Brett Baier, citing long lines that young voters in college towns such as Ann Arbor had to face. Right there in Ann Arbor, where we had that rally, those kids were waiting 3 hours in line to vote in Michigan, she explained. So why are there these long lines? It's voter suppression. They are closing down in various places, in various states. They are closing down polling locations, and it is still happening. It is still happening, and it will continue to happen. We have this video here where they announced that they were closing over a third of polling locations in the upcoming Maricopa County, Arizona election. The election day director actually said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this," and he walked away from the podium. I believe Jordan's going to play this at another time. I'm not.
So I would never, ever cut off Jen's video before it was done. But the volume was a little low, and I know that was a problem for some people. So Jen will redo it. She didn't have her mic, so that's why it was a little low. But the point of what Jen was trying to talk about, I could just paraphrase if you missed it. And by the way, we just got another new member. Holy cow! Welcome to the Media Revolution, Andrea. So we are now at 1,838 members. That would be 12 members away from 1,850 members. And I'm about to air for you a full on-the-ground report from California on the voter suppression going on. So give me a minute. I just want to, if you had trouble understanding what Jen was saying with the volume, hopefully you could hear my volume just fine. What Jen was saying was there is a lot of, Jordan, you owe me $1,000 for new speakers? What are you talking about, Sammy? Anyway, so what Jen was talking about, we've been getting a lot of emails, messages, talk about the exit poll discrepancies, because the exit polls, the difference between the exit polls right after some of these states, including Michigan, and the final results are way, way off, in some cases by 8 to 10 points, which the United Nations says if you have discrepancies in exit polls by over 4%, that is usually emblematic of election fraud. What Jen was saying and what I'm saying is, A, we haven't had time. I've been moving apartments. Jen just got home from Michigan. But secondly, there are some other outlets, we're not criticizing them, but we're just saying there's other outlets that have been running with this one guy's report on the exit poll discrepancies. I don't know who this one person is. I don't know what his credentials are. I don't know anything about him. I looked at his site. He cites his sources, this and that. But at Status Coup, we don't just casually report on things and say, yes, the exit polls are rigged without looking into it. And neither of us have had time to look into it. I don't think it's super responsible to just pass off someone. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this guy, but his about page on his site doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you his background, his credentials, or anything like that. So bottom line, we're going to look into it ourselves and tell you whether there's something radically off here. Another thing that people, and this gentleman that people are citing, left out, in Michigan, there was a 97% increase in absentee ballots. 97% increase in absentee ballots as compared to 2016. The exit polls, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but the initial exit polls did not factor in absentee ballots. So there might be a wider discrepancy in the initial exit polls to the final results because of those absentee ballots, which broke significantly for Joe Biden. So trust me, Jen and I are two very, very cynical people. We know the election is rigged. I don't trust the voting machines in America. I think they're easily manipulated. I think there needs to be open-sourced election data and election results so we could all see how the numbers are being crunched and who is crunching them. But the bottom line is, Jen and I cannot, and Status Coup will not, report the exit polls are rigged without speaking with this guy that Jen's report talked about. We're going to reach out to speak to him to see what is he basing his methodology on. But the bottom line is, the reason Bernie Sanders is not winning, I'm not going to lie to you, is not election fraud. A lot of it is voter suppression. But because of the long lines you saw in Texas and California, you're seeing all over the country. A lot of those long lines are happening at colleges. That's hurting Bernie Sanders. And the bigger fraud that is happening is the media fraud. The media has done more to rig this election in favor of Joe Biden and against Bernie Sanders than anybody else. So Jen's going to redo that video so you could hear it. But we wanted to make sure we're not ignoring the exit poll stuff. I've been moving. She just got back and is, spending some time with her kids. We can't get to everything right away, but we will get to it. Welcome new Status Coup member, Heidi. Woohoo! Heidi. All right, we are now at 1,839 members. That would be 11 members away. 11 members away from 1,850. I think, based on the report we're about to show you, there's 11 more of you that are going to want to sign up because you're not going to see this kind of reporting anywhere else. So, as you know, I was on the ground in California for the primary. We've actually been on the ground in Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, California, Michigan. We were about to send me to Arizona to cover the debate, but then the debate was canceled in Arizona, so there was nowhere to go. I'm not going to go to Ohio, Florida, Arizona, or Illinois because there's nothing to cover. Like, there's no rallies. People are, generally staying home. And I don't think at this point I want to be flying right now with coronavirus going on. As much as I love you guys, I got to put my health first. So we have been able to go to all those places because of you, because of your membership, because of the GoFundMe donations. We do still have our GoFundMe going. We don't talk about it a lot because technically we met our $85,000 goal. So we don't want to pump it up to, hey, meet our goal, and then be like, just kidding, keep donating. But we just tell you, the GoFundMe is technically still there if you want to donate. Jen will put the link in. So in California, I was only there for a few days. There's a freelance journalist there, Tina Desiree Berg. Jen, if you know the name of her podcast or the link or any of that, maybe drop it in there. But Tina Desiree Berg, who's a friend of Status Coup, she's been a journalist there in California for a long, long time. She saw in Los Angeles, the lines were crazy in Los Angeles. But Los Angeles also, like California generally, there is so much voter suppression based on the fact that the Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, endorsed Joe Biden, just like he endorsed Hillary Clinton in 2016. Right there is a blatant conflict of interest. The person who runs the elections in a state should not be endorsing any candidate. But California, literally, there was millions of votes that were thrown out in 2016 as provisional ballots. But this time, California decided, in addition to provisional ballots, which are, if you've experienced this, are not guaranteed to count. A lot of them get thrown out for reasons that aren't explained. Now, in California this time around, they added conditional ballots. I wish I could explain what a conditional ballot. I can't. I think they make this intentionally confusing just to keep the chaos and keep things suppressed. But there were also, Los Angeles in particular, which has millions of people live in Los Angeles, decided it would be a wonderful, bright idea to debut brand new voting machines during the Democratic primary of 2020. So they were using brand new voting machines that a lot of voters had no idea how to use. So Tina is a freelance journalist. She did this work for us. To be clear, when we get freelance submissions, we pay people for their work. Thanks to you. So your membership is not only going to fund us, but as we take more freelance submissions from around the country, we are using your funding is also going to pay independent journalists that do great work but might not have the platform on their own. So Status Coup wants to give those people more of a platform. And we also want to cover more around the country than Jen and I could cover. We can't be everywhere. So without further, one more. I just got new Status Coup member. Hold on. We just got another sign up, I believe. Did I miss it? Welcome new Status Coup member. Oh no, I didn't miss it. So we are now just 11 members away from 1,850. Without further ado, here is Tina Desiree Berg and her great reporting in California on the voter suppression and, frankly, I think fraud going on in California.
When Angelenos went to vote in this year's primary election, they were greeted with long lines, malfunctioning machines, and locations that were both understaffed and had undertrained election workers in them. The city spent $300 million on a new system and closed a number of polling stations. Election workers handed out a record number of provisional ballots and the newer conditional ballots because the system kept crashing or would not sync with the data at the registrar's office. This clearly led to many voters being disenfranchised. Hi, I'm Tina Desiree Berg, and in this special report, we dissect what actually went wrong in LA County on Super Tuesday, and we speak directly with many involved. The story begins with Dean Logan. The LA County Registrar resigned from Kings County in 2006 when they experienced problems with their contested 2004 governor's election. Dean had admitted in 2005 to using flawed methodology. Yet, in spite of this, he landed the number 2 job in Los Angeles. Hour and a half? All right, so this
Give us trackers.
they gave you trackers when you
Yeah,
first checked in?
we came in around 5:49 where the booth is.
Yeah.
So
This is crazy. So basically, the elected officials basically telling you that they don't have enough people to man. I spoke with election worker Emily, who is one of 4 election workers at the UCLA location. At this particular location, they had lines that were up to 3 hours long. Here's her story.
If the system would have worked.
Yeah, exactly. So it didn't work. One of the things that I noticed at several of the locations that I was in is that machines were malfunctioning left and right. One location I went in, they had a total of 6 machines, 3 of them were down. So that's half. And I was hearing about reports of that being the case at many other locations. Did you have problems with any of the machines in your location?
We had a few voting machines that were not working. They were out of order from the days before the election, so we put out of order on them. But the major issues that we were having were with the check-in tablets.
Okay.
So that's a whole complete system.
Walk us through that.
Okay, so when people come to vote, we check in their information through the LA County program on tablets, and we see their status as a voter, and that's when we issue them the ballots.
Right.
And we print it out. They take that ballot to the machine, insert their information, pick out their candidates, print it out, review it, and then insert the ballots
printout, yeah.
back into those machines
Right.
where they are secured and safe. And that's how it was supposed to go smoothly. That's how we were trained, but that never happened.
So what were some of the things that were holding up on the tablets? Was it missing information on the voter files? Was it address issues? What were some of the issues?
So I think I am not computer technician,
Yeah.
but I think what ended up happening from what we noticed is that the system was lagging. It kept syncing. We kept getting syncing, and it slowed everything down.
Oh, okay.
So the system started
It was overrun.
Yeah, we couldn't find voters' information at all, even though they had the affidavit with them. They had their, they already had the new system also allowed people to download an app.
Yeah.
And they already had their poll pass, which means they already picked out their candidates, so you just have to scan it in. And none of that worked. It was supposed to be a faster way to do it. People showed up with their ballots. The informational ballot that you receive at home, so that you can scribble down who you're going to be picking, and that couldn't be scanned. It couldn't be found. The information couldn't be found. The voters' information basically disappeared. Some of them were there. Great. We found some people. And as soon as we started processing their ballots, automatically the system started issuing provisional ballots, whether we found their information or not.
You're kidding me.
And a lot of people were like, wait a minute, I registered our time. I've been living here for 5 years. I voted in 2018. Why can't you find my information on the system? So we had to register these people as brand new voters, which meant they had to get the conditional ballot.
Yeah.
So is it going to count? Is it not going to count?
Who knows?
It all ended up in one big fat box.
Which really frustrates me because we know that oftentimes those votes aren't always counted. I think a lot of them are, but I'm pretty sure that from what I've seen, all of them are not. So that's unfortunate.
Also, many that were registered as no party preference voters told us that for us time after requesting it before the deadline. During training, new system allowed us to give crossover ballots, but on election day, the check-in tablet automatically issued provisional ballots for those voters because the system was slowing down while syncing.
But if they didn't have enough election workers on the day
Right.
of election, how are you going to sort out and verify thousands?
Yeah.
Actually, it was
hundreds of thousands.
Right.
If you see the tallies, it's a lot.
Right. So there had to be at least 1,000 from my precinct.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
100
know.
there's probably more than
there
that.
were hundreds of students standing there, and so from what I hear from other poll workers that started commenting on my feed, I was in the Valley, same thing happened. I was in Santa Monica City College, same 5-hour wait, same thing happened. So it was already being reversed. South Central,
Oh yeah.
East LA.
Manual arts had a huge problem
So
as well.
a lot of people were saying the same thing happened in their huge, humongous precinct. And I think it had to do with the volume of voters.
Yeah.
They shut down a lot of election centers to save
Well, that's
money.
exactly right. There were fewer sites this time because normally, and we should clarify this, normally in Los Angeles in the past, it's been easy to vote in the sense we've always had problems with provisional ballots and mail-in ballots being thrown out, etc. But the long lines is a new thing. At least in the past, you could walk into one of the voting sites and cast a ballot within 20 minutes. This was unheard of. And as far as I'm concerned, creating long lines in this way is absolutely a form of voter suppression. It may be a little bit more subtle than a voter ID law, but as far as I'm concerned, it is a form of voter suppression because if you don't have the time to stand in a 1.5 hour, 3 hour, 5 hour line, you've lost your right to vote, and we shouldn't expect that of our citizens.
The nurses and the cafeteria workers left the line. I saw them.
They had to go back to work, yeah.
And it just made me so sad. One of the nurses came up to me and she's like, "Is there a way?" I was like, "Let me ask." And I asked people in the front of the line, I'm like, "Please, can you let her?"
Yeah. So one of the other things that I noticed, so Supervisor Hahn is actually going to be bringing a motion in front of the Board of Supervisors on Monday morning to investigate some of the problems that happened in Los Angeles County on Super Tuesday. One of the things I noticed in her motion was that around 17,000 mail-in ballots never reached the voter. So that is inexcusable as well. What was done in those situations? Do you know?
So I had a lot of the voters showing up and say, "I never received my mail-in ballots. So people are like, "Oh, why did you wait last minute?" No, they did not wait last minute.
Yeah.
A lot of these voters that I dealt with, they are permanent mail-in ballots. And they requested the crossover ballot before the deadline.
Well, that's right.
And they never received any of this stuff.
Let's discuss that for a second. So folks that don't live in LA probably don't, or even in California, don't know what that is. So if you have a mail-in ballot and you're registered as an NPP voter, which NPP is no party preference, you're an independent, you're not a member of the Democratic Party. If you want to vote in the Democratic primary, you can, but you have to have what they call a crossover ballot, and they're not going to mail you that unless you request it. So if you are a mail-in person, you have to go to the polling site and surrender that one to get your crossover ballot, right?
That's if they did not mail that ballot to you. And a lot of my friends have said they have not received it, but one of my friends was smart enough to go the Sunday before election, and she was able to get her crossover and everything went fine. But many people were not so fortunate, or they didn't have that information. Unless you speak to people who are politically active, you are not aware that you're going to show up and you're going to get a ballot that may or may not count. So that was a huge problem.
It is a huge problem. Another thing Greg Pallas had mentioned to me when I talked to him a few days back was that there's some sort of gag rule where the poll workers aren't allowed to offer a crossover ballot unless the person asks for one, which is mind-numbing to me. That seems also to be a form of voter suppression.
Correct. So people did not know. I just had to process what they requested. And I wasn't allowed to share any information that they did not offer.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was in the training.
That's just not right. Another thing that really upset me about this round, so in the past when we voted, we always got these little stubs, right? And if you get a provisional ballot or regular one, there's a number on there. You can actually go online and you can trace where your ballot is in the process, right?
Correct.
So say you did a ballot and you want to make sure it was verified, there's not a problem with the signature, whatever, you could go online. If there was a problem, you could always go down to Norwalk to the county registrar's office and correct that. That was an option, right? I don't see how they can continue doing that this time because they gave you absolutely nothing.
Right. So the way to do that is to use your own name and registration that you have, all the information, the address that you use to register to vote. Go up and look up your own information again on the LA Net.
LA Votes, whatever,
Net,
okay.
Website, and that's how you can try and trace if you can find your information on that website. Good luck to you.
Good luck to you. Yeah, there's no
you
paper
could try
trail.
and trace it that way.
Okay.
That's what we were told, that people can do that.
Okay.
However, now I'm hearing from people that information is not available until 30 more days. That was like what they are finding out, that it's, and the same thing with provisional ballot. It might not get counted until, I'm hearing different stories, different sources. There is no information out there that's enough for people to know what is going on.
This is a disaster.
Correct. I mean,
it should not be that hard to vote.
They didn't, I think they cut down all these election centers, but they did not anticipate. They thought like, oh, let's open it for 4 days, but people didn't have that information. They didn't know that they
also,
had that.
let me point this out.
Yeah.
They were all supposed to be opened on the 22nd, and a lot of them were not open on the 22nd.
No.
We went by several locations that were not open yet, where they were in various forms of disarray. So I'm not sure how many of them actually opened on time. That's another thing.
I was supposed to report to a specific location 4 days before the election, but I never got the rest of the location, the time, never had that full information. And I'm like, okay, maybe they don't need me after all. And finally I get a phone call the day before the election, and my lead, who was at my election center, freaking out. She's like, please tell me you are coming tomorrow. I'm like, I didn't get any information. She's like, no, we need you, please. I go,
okay,
but am I going to get paid? She's like, I don't think so. You're a volunteer. So here I am showing up
as a
not
volunteer.
Knowing I'm just volunteering.
Hello, I'm Melanie Cohen from AD 66 down in the South Bay. Even in the South Bay, our senior citizens were not given directions how to vote. I know personally 24 who walked out with their ballots. Unfortunately, there was not enough direction nor training on this new system. This morning, I just put up a post on my Facebook, normal, talking to my friends. Hey, did anyone have trouble voting? I immediately got 20 responses, including telling me that when they came to vote, they could not vote, and some of them had to leave because machines were down.
Screaming, I don't know how to work this machine. So they had to, we had to help them. They were begging us to help them. I don't know what to do. People were running out with the ballots because they thought,
they thought they were receipts.
That was the receipt.
So they weren't scanning it back in.
Chase them out, like, no, please, sir, put it back in. That's mine. No, it will not count if you don't put it back in the machine. And then they go back to the machine. There's already another voter there. So now we have to cancel the old ballot.
No, you have to.
And now we have to issue them a
new
provisional
one.
ballot.
You're kidding me.
It happened
So if
a
somebody
lot.
had started voting on the machine before it had been scanned back in, that would just completely void it out.
When they tried to scan it back in, we would get a notification saying this person has already voted. Like, no, they did not. And it was like,
that's the first I'm hearing of
messages.
that.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, because it wasn't clear. I mean, if you didn't have a poll worker standing within a certain amount of space, I didn't realize I had to scan that back through.
But we explained it to everyone who checked in. We would explain to them the complete process. But
which
at
takes
one
more
point-
time.
Yes, at one point we were just like, please scan it back in. I don't think they understood what
No.
that meant, especially
No.
if they
If they were an
not
elderly-
tech savvy.
exactly.
They did not understand what that meant. How do I scan it upside down? And that's when it jammed. And they were even lucky to just get a ballot. But actually printed. That was the challenge, that we were dealing with a lot more than just teaching them how to scan it back in.
My name is Melissa Michelson, and I am, among many things, the president of Feel the Burn Democratic Club Los Angeles. Thank you. I'm also I'm a California state delegate to the Democratic Party, as in the progressive wing, of course, and then also a newly elected LA County member of the Democratic Party. So it's time for Dean Logan to resign. Why is it that at each primary election, 2016 and again 2020, things are just getting worse? This time, he put a new electronic system into effect without it being certified, and look what happened. Crashes, problems with connectivity, more versus next buttons, resulting in candidates being virtually invisible to voters on the screen, with a subsequent lawsuit coming now out of Beverly Hills. In addition, there was a lack of adequate education to voters about how to work the computers. People would literally take their ballot away and walk off with them. So what happened to their vote? In one voting center that I observed in Alhambra, this had a recurring problem. I had to help them make 17 signs, take them to each booth, and it read, "Do not take your ballot, it goes back in the printer." Why weren't those signs all around? And why was I doing this? But who am I, and why am I doing this? Why am I here? I'm a concerned American that regardless of whom a voter is supporting, I expect my voting system to run smoothly, not disenfranchise voters with hours of lines, withhold their vote by mail ballots, and 17,000 of them apparently were never mailed out to them, so they had to go in person and vote provisionally. And I expect every eligible vote to count immediately, with no questions asked, not provisionally. In LA County alone, 77,000 provisional ballots were given out, and 170,000 other ballots had issues with them. Plus, they're still counting the 555,000 mail-in ballots. So I observed 7 voting centers over the primary voting period. During early voting, the centers were empty, but the poll workers were giving misinformation. Registered voters were not found on the e-poll book check-in system and being handed provisional ballots. And at Pasadena City College Voter Center, I recorded the poll worker immediately asking for ID as someone tried to check in, which goes against the poll worker handbook instructions. At that moment, when I tried to intervene and correct him for asking for ID, he got mad and said he'd call the police to have me removed. Yes, it is.
No, listen,
ma'am. You're
okay?
in here bothering the voters, which is why we're
What does
here,
that mean,
and you have to
bothering?
go. You have to go. You're not letting them vote. You're in there.
I'm
You're
not
talking
letting
to them.
people vote?
Yes, you gotta
How is
go.
you
gotta
saw
go.
that?
You gotta go.
You saw me
Let's
not
go.
letting
You gotta-
people vote.
Everybody else is saying that, ma'am.
Under his direction?
Everybody else is
Yes,
saying that.
everybody that works
That
here
I'm
saying
not
that.
letting people
They called
vote?
the cops on you 3 times.
That I'm not.
3 times.
You said
You gotta
that
go.
I am disturbing people
Do you
and
get
not
paid
letting
for this?
people vote.
You're wasting your time.
And you
go
are
home
too.
and relax. No, this is my job.
I
This is
want
my
to check
job.
the vote.
And you're right. I have other important calls to attend to.
I agree.
This is a waste of time.
It is.
Okay?
And
you
I'd
gotta
like to
go.
observe this
Okay, you
polling
gotta
center
go.
because
Let's
there
go.
are problems going on in here.
Let's go. You gotta go, man.
Why?
You have to go.
Did I stop anybody
We
from
already
voting?
explained to you why.
Because Armando, he's in charge of this poll.
Okay.
For whatever reason, listen, whatever reason, you guys had some jurisdiction. I don't know. Whatever.
Right.
He called Norwalk. They said
Right.
under his discretion, he's allowed to ask you to leave, and you have to leave. Okay.
How do we know
Listen,
that's what
stop.
they said?
Call.
Stop.
Call. You can
No,
call right
if
now.
you still
I-
want, if you want someone to observe, get
Yeah.
someone else to come and observe for you. But you can't come back here.
Get who to come observe?
If you want someone else to observe for you,
Uh-huh.
have them come over here and observe for
And
you.
when they find a problem, what are they supposed to do?
Then they address it.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. But when you do that,
No.
Armando gets upset and calls the police. That's the
If
situation
there's
here.
something you should address with Norwalk.
I called the registrar's office hotline, but it was on hold forever. The same thing happened on voting day in South Central. Because I expected accountability from the center and asked questions, I was accused of disturbing voters. Armando, the precinct captain at the Central Park Rec Center on 22nd Street, called the police to remove me. I was neither challenging a voter or electioneering. Both are against the law as per this guide right here, guide for poll watchers. He could not prove that I was doing anything like that.
So I'm here with Rodolfo Barragan, who was just a recent candidate in congressional elections here in California. We're standing in front of the county registrar's office. And as many know from my reporting, there was a predominance of problems on Super Tuesday here in Los Angeles. We had 3 to 4 hour waits in almost every single election site. We had the software crashing so that the poll workers and elections workers were not able to access the data that was in the database. So they were giving out provisional ballots. We had a myriad of problems. Did you witness any personally while you were in your precinct on that night? And if so, tell us what some of those things were.
Yeah, so obviously there were just too many people and not enough poll workers or enough machines that were working. So all of that was, of course, orchestrated, right, in this way. You know, for decades, the people had a system that worked, that had very few, if any, scandals about voting rigging. But then come in the electronic voting machines that Dean Logan introduced, and look what we have, a big mess because many people are not quite sure how to use them, and they break down all on their own. Yeah. So all of this is unacceptable. So, of course, that's why, you know, we're here to make sure that he resigns, because he must resign. You know, he already pulled off election fraud in other places, and that shouldn't be allowed to stand.
You know what? Let's talk about that. So Dean Logan was previously employed in Kings County, and how is it that after that happened, he got a job here in the city of Los Angeles?
Well, you know, we'll have to dig in the records and really go make sure that the County Board of Supervisors knows that we will not stand for this. We will not allow this to go on. But unfortunately, of course, elections in the United States are by and large rigged by the powers that be. And one of those ways is to make sure that they get the specific people that they want to be in charge of the elections to be counting the votes, right? So that's what we have to work against so that we can have truly transparent elections, which, of course, as anyone would tell you, is just, you know, we need things like hand-counted paper ballots. What's so difficult about this? Why do we need complex machines that are completely riggable and haven't even been verified by security experts? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. You know, part of that is that the software is proprietary, so which is, I think, is ridiculous that any voting system would allow for it to be proprietary, only for the corporations to see. That's a problem. Also, you bring up InkaVote, which is what we used previously. The rest of the state did use InkaVote on Tuesday and absolutely did not have the experiences that were here in Los Angeles. I know several of the sites I visited were having machines down, or like you said, they didn't have enough poll workers there to run the machines that they had. One site had 20 machines, but only enough poll workers there to man 5 of them. This is unacceptable. And in my opinion, long lines are absolutely a form of voter suppression.
Of course. Yeah, so for decades we had the InkaVote system, which, you know, for those that are familiar with it, it's a little bit clunky, but it works. It works. People felt like their vote was truly being counted, and it was counted actually by a machine that, say, wasn't connected to the internet. It was an ancient machine, which it worked, and we had no scandals. But look now, people oftentimes say, reporting that, you know, if there were a lot of candidates, for example, on their ballot for a particular position, oftentimes they have to say more, and then people didn't know exactly where their candidate was. So all of that is a way to rig the election against the people, because, you know, the people shouldn't be it shouldn't be so difficult to vote.
You know, one of the other things that you bring up that I think is important, when you were using the system, you had to print out the ballot and re-scan it back in. But a lot of folks that were used to having a receipt when they voted left with those and didn't re-scan them back in. So one of the election workers I spoke to said that they were constantly chasing down voters to bring the paper back in to get it re-scanned. And they didn't seem to understand that if they didn't re-scan that paper, their vote would not be counted. So this was happening a lot too.
Exactly. So there were all of these multiple roadblocks that voters kept facing, and these were completely unreasonable and continue to be. We should not have so many steps in voting. Rather, you know, the people should just be able to show up in the way that they were for a long period of time and simply give their information so that they could get their ballot and vote. So we've gone backwards. We need to go back to the former system, and even that system that we could make improvements on it. But this current system that they've pushed on us through Dean Logan, it's completely unacceptable.
I'm speaking with Paul Padilla, who is a recent candidate for City Council and also the Central County Committee, and I believe you won that particular election. So talk to me about why you are here today and why some of the problems that you experienced or saw or witnessed yourself on Super Tuesday.
So, yes, Paul Cole Padilla here, and I'm here to call for the resignation of Dean Logan. We're hoping he'll resign tonight. He may not. And if he doesn't, we're calling for him to be fired tomorrow. So today's protest is hashtag resign Dean Logan, and tomorrow's is hashtag fire Dean Logan. What I witnessed in San Gabriel was too long a line. In elections past, the longest I've probably waited is about 10 minutes. Right. And thankfully, I had done vote by mail. And so I was able to just drop it off, go to the side of the line, and it was easy. However, the line appeared to be about an hour long. That was the estimate being given by people. And this was at closing. Yeah. And that's usually when the line, in my past experience, is the shortest. So, and by comparison, San Gabriel was in a lot better shape than other places. Yeah. And by other places, I'm specifically referring to college campuses. Right. And my fear is black and brown and poor communities. Yeah. And I want this investigation to actually determine whether or not there was neglectful or intentional voter suppression in vulnerable communities. UCLA, I'm wearing my UCLA alma mater little jacket, had, according to your reporting, 4 poll workers for a campus of, at least 50,000 students, 100%. Faculty, staff.
And it was not only just the students, it was everybody around that area as well. So it's a disgrace.
Pasadena City College, where Melissa Michelson, one of the organizers of today's protest, is, there were precisely 3 voting check-in e-poll book machines for a campus of 30,000 students. Republicans in red states are infamous for these types of voter suppression techniques, especially among students. I think Alabama would be envious of what happened here in Los Angeles. Yeah. It was Banana Republic. As I said, Dean Logan sailed the ship of democracy in LA County into the rocks. And when a ship captain crashes the ship, he, she, or they are relieved of command. Yeah. And if they are not, they are mutinied. And we the people are here to, quite frankly, mutiny him. If he does not resign, he will be, we hope, mutinied by the LA County Board of Supervisors. Right. We will be demanding that tomorrow. Dean Logan comes from Washington State, where apparently he was forced to resign. Yes, we should have never hired him here.
I agree.
And it's been a trail of problems that followed him from Washington here to Los Angeles County and has continued.
Yeah. Gotten worse.
It's unacceptable, and unacceptable means unacceptable. If we allow the unacceptable to become acceptable, then we let them get away with this. Right. And nothing will ever change. We need to send a message right here in LA County to the rest of the country that elections heads who, either through neglect or intentional crap, pull off elections like this, the people will not tolerate it, and we will get rid of you.
Okay, so I'm being told by Melissa we're going to go up to Dean Logan's office now to give him the petitions for him to resign. I want to ask you really quickly, though, about one thing. One of the things in Supervisor Hahn's motion is she mentions that there were 17,000 mail-in ballots that didn't reach voters in time. And so my understanding of that situation is what happened is because they didn't receive them, they couldn't surrender them at the polling site either. And so they were given not even provisional, they were given these conditional ballots, which means they're kind of sort of a newly registered, which is worse than a provisional. This is absolutely unacceptable. Do we have any idea how that happened?
I don't. I want to find out. And that's why this investigation needs to be full and thorough and independent. I am very concerned about Dean Logan remaining as the county registrar and investigating himself. That is unacceptable.
I agree.
We need an independent investigation.
I agree. All right, so I'm going to follow you guys up to Dean Logan's office now and see what he has to say about this. But I agree. There were problems in 2016. What happened this last Tuesday was worse than anything I've ever witnessed, ever. It was horrible. It was inexcusable. And we know people didn't vote because of the lines.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for talking with us, Paul. I'm going to follow you up there.
Yeah, let's come in with the 6 right here again.
Let's come in, let's Betty,
I got them upstairs right now.
You need an escort.
Why do you need an escort?
I don't know, so that they can make sure that you don't talk to the ballot workers and follow the rules.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of find it a little weird because this is a public election. I mean, this is public. It should all be public.
Right? I don't disagree.
So we're trying to. So hi, we are here at the LARRCC with all the people who are making this protest against Dean Logan to resign. We are on the 7th floor trying to file a complaint and to hand over a document. There's nobody ready to accept any kind of document with respect to the complaint that people are here with. People are here from all walks of life, from different districts, for different candidates and different races. It's a non-partisan issue. It's all about transparency and integrity of the election. And people are very peaceful. They're all here. Betty is here. I see a bunch of friends behind me who simply want to hand over a letter about the complaints that we have. And there's nobody here to take the complaint. Plus, we are being told that this floor has no access. This place is not welcome to public. This is not a public access place. This is where Dean Logan has his office, which should be open to public access. And there's a security guard sitting there saying the public is not allowed in here. Although everybody's extremely peaceful, they just want to hand over a complaint to show their demands. The biggest demand here is that after such a lot of, fraud and mismanagement and plundering of hundreds of millions of dollars, people are just demanding his resignation. And they just want to submit this wonderful demonstration of peace that we've had here outside. They just want to represent that peace document over to Dean Logan so that it is received by the office, so that when we go out, we know that all this effort that's been made has concluded. We have documented it. We have handed over our demand, people's demand. This is not our demand. This is the demand of the people of all the district for the entire LA County. All over, everybody's experienced tremendous headache, tremendous pain and suffering, standing in line for hours and hours with plundering of hundreds of millions of dollars of public money spent on fake, defective machines that can shift results, machines that can change. $300 million. I'm not talking about 1 million, 200, $300 million that could have been spent on people doing hand counts. That could have been money that made by the people. People would have made money over it. Poll workers would have made money out of it. Poll workers that I know have been complaining that they were underpaid, like about $7 an hour when you divide it with the hours they were working on. So they were out there working till midnight. Everybody's extremely peaceful. The law enforcement is very, very cooperative here. They have, followed us here, but they're trying to make sure there's a cooperation and the job is done. So.
That's what we want, a real record. Like
Today the
public record.
strike?
We're here to observe.
Okay.
Democracy.
This is what democracy looks like.
We want it paper.
How you doing? Who sent you? Who did you speak to upstairs?
We went to 7th floor.
Uh-huh.
And the person out there, they said you need to go and
Wait.
7th.
Security or the receptionist?
Somebody from the reception, these guys, they said nobody's
You
here.
didn't get a name?
We just believe, they said go here and submit it.
Redirect us again?
And we need complaint. Can we talk to Dean Logan?
We want to go for a letter. Where do we go?
It's like you're having fun.
We can go there.
You want to look at the badges?
Okay, so we should get the letter back because we want to hand deliver it.
We're going to accommodate you guys. No worries.
Thank you.
If you could, we're waiting to. Can you not record me, please? Please. All right. I asked my.
Okay, we are now inside the county registrar's office in Los Angeles. I'm speaking with Betty Dumas, who is one of the organizers for today's protest. What are we doing right now currently?
We are currently waiting to find out where Dean Logan is. It's kind of like, where is Dean Logan? Where in the world is Dean Logan? We went up to the 7th floor, which is the executive offices. We weren't allowed access. We were just standing in the elevator area. And we were told that this might be a viable option to come down to the 2nd floor to get this letter that we are demanding his resignation. And we're just in a holding pattern right now in this office on the 2nd floor, and waiting to see if the people behind this counter can get us any help and get that letter, asking him just to do the right thing and resign.
So basically the idea right now is we're asking Dean Logan to resign ahead of the Board of Supervisors tomorrow. Supervisor Hahn is going to be bringing a motion to investigate the problems that happened in Los Angeles on Super Tuesday, many of which had to do with the failure of a system that we spent $300 million on that has proprietary software. And part of the problem I'm learning today was that they were scanning in mail-in ballots at the same time that people were voting, which overran the system. So it kept crashing. How did they not know to not do that?
This is failure to train people properly. We have another person that is amongst our activist group that actually demanded a training manual for the poll workers to see that and see how that it was all going to go down. And it took her days and days and days to even be told that there was one, and even to get one. These poll workers were not trained properly. This is an important election, and this is a huge misstep by Dean Logan. To think that to give reassurances when just ordinary citizens were just looking at it on face value and saying, this could be a problem, that could be a problem, that could be a problem, can you please address those? And then just giving us reassurances that these problems will be taken care of, and they weren't. And he needs to resign. And regardless of what happens at the Board of Supervisors meeting tomorrow, he needs to resign. We need to get somebody that's competent there to actually take over and take over the count, take over and figure out what has gone wrong and how we're going to fix this and how we're going to move forward with saving our democracy.
Right. So it seems to me, you bring up the poll worker training, which didn't happen. The other thing that I think is really disturbing is that they were able to spend $300 million on proprietary software that's not working, yet they can't pay and hire a staff at each one of these election sites to man this. This seems like a ridiculous thing. Most of these folks were volunteers. I've spoken with several of them. I'm surprised they actually stayed the duration. They were getting yelled at by people because they were in line for 3 hours. The system was crashing, the provisional ballots. I mean, it's just a complete mess. And it seems to me that they should have had the wherewithal to actually invest in hiring and training a staff that can man the machines, because they must have known that people were going to walk out with those printed ballots and not realize they had to be scanned back in, because our prior system, the Inca vote, you did get a receipt from, right? Yes. So that's the other thing. We don't have a ballot number at this point. You scan that back in and you're given nothing. That's right. It goes right into the ether. I have a problem with that too, to be frank.
Yeah, actually, that's a really huge problem. I didn't even think about that to this very moment, because I actually did vote by mail, and I never do vote by mail. I chose to do that this time around, and that's a huge problem that they don't even get a little receipt to go with them so that they can, figure out where their vote went.
Well, so you're supposed to be able to log back into the system and type in your name, your address, and all that, and it's supposed to come back up so you can check on your ballot, but that's not functioning either is the problem. This is part of the same software issue, right? Would you like to come in and join us? Here, come over here.
Also, one thing that is really, really important to note is that Dean Logan online was telling everyone, if you're not comfortable with the machine, go and ask for a paper ballot. But there was no such thing. People were calling me hundreds and hundreds of times. We are at this voting center. They have no such thing as paper ballot. They have a paper that says write-in form. But many of the sites that they have, voting center site, did not have paper ballot. In fact, I went myself asking for a paper ballot, and they said, yes, we have, but not in English. So that was... Yeah, not in English. So they had Persian, they had Korean, they had all the other languages, but not in English. And I said, then what should I use? They were forcing people to use the machine. That's what I want to say. They were forcing, and it was being set up by Dean Logan. They were trained like that. The staff was innocent, and they were just told whenever anyone asked for any kind of a paper ballot, just push them to the machine. And and none of those votes are being counted. And that's why we are here. We are here for transparency, and I love Betty for doing this thing, because we are here now at the second floor of the Election Information Center. We went all the way up to Dean Logan's office. We were told that that is not open to public. We are here, and this is what democracy looks like. We are here. We are fighting, and we'll keep fighting. Thank you so much. We'll keep you updated on this.
Yeah. Let me also bring up this, because a lot of those ballots that you're talking about that were in Spanish or were in Vietnamese, etc., if they were filled out, they had to be placed into a pink envelope. And what was happening, and I know for a fact at the UCLA site, is because they were so severely understaffed, people were just throwing them on the desks. So there were piles of these handwritten ballots that were sitting there. They were never placed into pink envelopes, and I guarantee they're not going to be counted for this reason.
So I just wanted to, I was at the Columbus Middle School voting center in CD30, and the line, like I said before, was around the corner. We had poll workers coming out, I guess, out of total frustration of just telling people it's going to be another 3-hour wait. It was like 6 or so at night. I think it was, with no say, okay, it's going to be 3-hour wait, but we found another voting center that could possibly lessen your wait at this location. And I asked the person about it. It's like, they won't answer the phones. I'm sure they probably wouldn't answer the phones. But the thing is it was chaos, and I know that he came out there probably out of frustration, but people left. People were disenfranchised because they left, and they didn't vote. And people, this one person that actually was staffed there as a poll worker, it was just extremely, extremely frustrating for them all day to actually be waiting and calling their supervisors and calling the registrar, these poll workers, and talking about what's breaking down, what's happening, and then not get any answer, and then not be told that they didn't even receive their issues to be even addressed. This is a failure of Dean Logan. This is, I know it's a failure of our Secretary of State. Why hire somebody on that has had issues in the past in a different state? I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense to me. And here we are over and over again having it. Why roll out a system like this now? And I'm sorry, nobody showed up to your mock election. I went and nobody was there. All right, so good news. We have a second in command, I guess, that's going to come down and accept the letter that we are asking and demanding that Dean Logan resign.
I just wanted to point out one more thing at the election night when I was out there at the site doing the vote count. First thing I was told was it's going to be a long night. It's going to be election count for about weeks. Then just a couple of hours later, Alex Oliveira came over again and said, you know what, we had a poor turnout, and we'll be finishing the vote count early tonight. I said, for what I saw in District 30, there were overwhelming lines, massive turnout. I personally spent 2.5 hours, in line to cast my vote. So that's not true. I think there was a massive turnout, and I don't know what you're talking about. Then later down the line, they said, no, from what we see, we have got all the ballots in, and we are going to count all of them on 6 o'clock in the morning. They said, we've already counted all the ballots. Now I see that ballots are still being counted. So I don't know why they have to lie. This whole election is about lies and more lies. And people who are in line for hours, they feel cheated. The people who are in line hours, they feel that there is no law, there's no transparency. And we are here for the people. Thank you. Let's thank Alex. He's here.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for coming down and meeting with us. We're a little concerned that Dean Logan is not coming down himself. Is he not available?
Dean is in one of our off-site locations. He has been for a few hours. So he's not on the premises.
Okay, well,
Downey location?
I'm not sure where he is.
okay, because we really would like to hand this letter off to him. Thank you for coming, though, and thank you for being willing to accept this letter from us. Yes. This letter is one thing. We are asking for his resignation. Understood. Period. That's it. That's what we want, and we hope that you will take this and give this to him. And in good faith, we're handing it over to you to immediately.
This letter is from the people this letter is from the people. It's a nonpartisan issue. It's from all districts. It's from all over Los Angeles County, all spectrums, and everybody's voice is in this letter. We did a very peaceful demonstration down.
Logan, we want you to resign. We need you to resign. Uphold democracy and resign.
Shame.
This is why we are here. It's a very peaceful demonstration. We thank you so much for coming down. And this is it has started, as I was telling you earlier, and there are much more people outside. We didn't want everybody to come here. Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you. Thank you for the people. So can you make a copy? No. We need a copy of this received.
Also, you're allowed, if you'd like to comment, I'm allowing you that.
Actually, I'm not allowed to comment.
Okay, but I wanted to offer.
So, okay. So what we want is a copy of this. So we have a copy of this, so that for our record.
We'll timestamp it for you
Yes.
as received.
Thank you.
And give you a copy.
Thank you.
Just right here.
Okay. So thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we have this copy of the complaint that we submitted. It's one simple request, one simple demand that Dean Logan must resign.
Take that one up now regarding the registrar recorder. And again, I would ask that our individuals in the room help the audience get out quietly. So with that, item number 6, Supervisor Hahn, if you would like to open it up, I would appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. And again, I'll just echo your remarks about just if you're leaving the auditorium now, we're still in the middle of our meeting. Well, not the middle anymore, but we ask for your cooperation. Colleagues, it's obviously Election Day, our March 3rd primary for Los Angeles County has come and gone. And for me, there seems to be more questions at this point than answers about what took place on Election Day. Our Registrar Recorder, Dean Logan, is here today. We thank you for being here. And I'm just going to say from...
Okay, you know what, you guys, please. And if the security out there identifies who is disrupting, you will escort them out of the room. And it's going to start with you, Mr. Previn. Thank you. Go ahead, Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you. And obviously this motion that is before us today is asking you to obviously take a good hard look at our election voting opportunities for LA County residents. I don't expect you to have answers today. Probably some of my colleagues will be asking you questions about what happened, but I personally don't expect you to have answers today, but I do expect a very thorough analysis of what happened. Now, I will say personally, my experience on Election Day at 8:45 in the morning was okay. I only waited in line a couple of minutes. I checked in. I found the machines to be very user-friendly and had no problems. But as the day progressed, I began hearing anecdotal evidence of things that, in my opinion, went very wrong on Election Day. We had instances of people waiting 2-3 hours to vote. And we don't know how many people just got out of the line because they couldn't wait any longer. They had kids to pick up. They had work to get back to. They were in school themselves. And we don't know. We just don't know how many people actually got out of line. I heard about the e-poll books that were not synced properly or did not function at all, so that when someone did check in, the ability to find their name even at that point was difficult, and many of them were not even found in the system, even though they knew they were registered to vote, and then they were given provisional ballots. I heard reports of broken VSAP machines across the county. In fact, I did even in my own polling place, well, it was my vote center, I saw machines with blue tape across them signifying that they were out of order. I heard stories of machines being out of order, calling for IT support, having these support people come and being unable to fix the machines. I have heard of, our poll workers, our vote center workers working, 12 to 18 hours without a break. I also heard of some of these workers not, according to what I've been told, not being sufficiently trained. I was told that some workers were asking for IDs, which is absolutely not supposed to happen. I heard there was insufficient parking at vote centers and not enough centers with ADA access. I heard that not all vote centers were supplied with paper ballots. And once again, workers were unable to reach someone to remedy that situation quickly. I know that you are going to have a manual tally of 1%, which is the requirement, but wondering if you might consider 2%, since this was a new system, and maybe that will give us better information. As you know, stuff happened under your watch that had nothing to do with the new VSAP system on Election Day. Measure FD was left off of 66,000 ballots in Pomona and Hawthorne, and I also got a stack of letters today, one from Calabasas, the mayor of Calabasas, who said FD was also left off a particular precinct there and was very concerned about that. We know that people, again, I feel like we did hear, I heard from my Congresswoman Nanette Barragan, who sent her workers, her staff members out to voting centers throughout the district on Election Day and came back with many of these same problems that I heard about. I heard that when poll workers had problems, they attempted to reach somebody in your office and many times couldn't find the right person that could help them with the issues. Again, I don't expect you to answer any of these problems. There were a lot of things that probably did go right. But to me, that does not negate everything that went wrong. Voting is, I don't have to tell you, you know this, just so fundamental, so precious, so important. This election, we always say it's the most important election in our lifetime, and a lot went wrong. And I've got to tell you, I was very, very disappointed, very disappointed. We know the majority of people waited until Election Day. I was one of those, mainly because I hadn't made my mind up yet. And so I did wait till Election Day. But we weren't ready for that many people. I heard that the lines were long because there were not enough workers to check people in on those e-poll books. So that became the choke point. But it's just unacceptable to me. And I'm still getting complaints. I'm still having people meet with me, sending me anonymous reports about their experience. So for me, this motion says to you, please investigate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think there's been a lot of statement of the problems, and I'm going to add to it, and I'm certain that public comment's going to add to it as well, where people want to say, just as they did after the Woolsey fire, this is what happened to me, this is why it was bad, was a terrible thing, and what are you going to do about it? So I want to add to some extent what I heard in addition to what we've already heard about some of the problems for you to take into account. First of all, the volunteers were required, as I understand it, not simply to work for one day, but to work for 2 days, and in addition to do a whole day's training. So that meant that they had to commit 3 days. I would really like us to take a look at that, and I say us because, we're talking to you because we're responsible for you, and we're not ducking from it. But there are many other things that I think haven't been brought up that I want you to take into account in looking at this. The former Secretary of State, Deborah Bowen, was a volunteer in the Marina. She went through her training, and some friends of mine went through it with her at the same place. They said it was stultifying and insulting, that the person who trained was insulting. Didn't matter that it was Deb Bowen, but it sort of exacerbated it since she did know a little bit about voting systems, including electronic voting systems. So we've had a long talk about much of it, and I think it seems
These folks are your constituents.
To my colleagues' talk that these motions are going to pass.
Vasquez, Linda Bassett, Robin Gibson, Melissa Michelson, Robin Gibson, Jed Copper, Matthew Bavato, and Anastasia Kasser, Susan Monet.
Thank you. It's Eric Previn from Studio City in the 3rd District. And I appreciated the comment about how, is it possible that we had so many long lines and so many people were not served and didn't get a chance to vote. And in my district, in my neighborhood, that definitely happened. I have 3 or 4 anecdotal instances where people showed up. The line was simply too long for what they had planned. Evidently, they waited until Election Day, which is a problem. But the question is this body capable of planning anything? Because this meeting is absurd. We have been waiting for 8 hours and 45% of the people have left. So excuse me, Catherine Barger, don't bang the gavel, just listen. The public
No, I'm not
is
talking
furious.
to you, I'm talking to people behind you.
No, but don't talk to anybody. Listen. It's very, very bad, okay? The Board of Supervisors does it all the time. It's like a filibuster. So Alex Padilla, all due respect, is a guy who sits up there waving. It's not Dean Logan's personal fault, but this was a mess. And all 5 of you are responsible. So I like the kabuki theater of we're disappointed with Dean, but honestly, get it together.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Anastasia Kasar, and I'm from the California Clean Money Campaign. I'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors for allowing me to speak today. As a millennial young voter and activist, I support the motion to review the Election Day voting issues, but would like to ask you to do more. Young people are losing faith in our elections, and they're already reluctant to cast their ballots. That's why it's so important that you consider the Clean Money Coalition's letter request to fix the security flaws that experts have identified in the system. These flaws and other questions ignite young people's fears and therefore limit their and everybody's desire to cast their votes on Election Day. So I ask you to address these issues, if not now, then in a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I was an election worker. Most voters couldn't be found in the new system. Whether they had their voter sample ballot, poll pass, or affidavit, when scanned, the system rejected 70% of the voters' info. The message on the check-in ballot, a tablet, kept stating, "Voter not found." Using other tablets did not help. Many voters reported they have not received their mail-in ballots or the wrong ballots. The check-in tablet automatically issued provisional ballots for 80% of the voters. Voters waited for 3 to 4 hours. Absolutely, there is no reason for them to be receiving provisional ballots. Voters screamed at us. We were there from 6 in the morning till 10:30 at night. No food, no water, no breaks. Thank you very much. I had young women of color screaming, why can't they vote? Why are they not allowed to vote? They registered on time. They had their voter information right with them.
Thank you.
That's a crime. He needs to resign.
Thank you. Okay, you know what? All the first row, gentleman with the hat, if you clap again, I'm going to ask you to leave. You, Mr. Spindler, I'm weighing enough. I'm done. Next speaker, without interruption.
Hello, Board. My name is Matthew Barbado. On Election Day, like many voters in LA County, I witnessed 3-hour wait lines, broken and insufficient check-in machines, and overwhelmed staff. I also spoke with and witnessed at least 3 voters leaving the polls and foregoing their right to vote due to the long wait. There is no other way to describe the effects that the atrocious voting process had other than disenfranchisement. I spoke with dozens and dozens, in fact, a majority of no-party preference voters at their homes who were confused and uninformed about the rules and requirements for their voting in the Democratic primary, particularly mail-in ballot voters. This most certainly resulted in untold numbers of voters not casting their votes in the primary.
So that was a report by Tina Desiree Berg. Tina Desiree Berg out of California, a great freelance journalist who did a lot of work on that. So thanks to her. I'll put her podcast. I will put her podcast link in the super chat right there. We are going to try and offer you as much freelance reporting from other reporters around the country as we can. We obviously have to pay them and want to pay them. So keep signing up. We are 10 members away. 10 members away. From 1,850. 1,850 members. This is how we fund everything. Fund Jen and my reporting. Hopefully more reporting from people like Tina. I very much doubt you will ever see anything like that on CNN, on MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, other independent outlets. I don't think so. And it might, obviously that was in Los Angeles, so it's not like directly affecting you, but all of this chaos in the election system affects all of us. And the reason they get away with it is because the majority of people don't know about it. So that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to inform the masses. I am going to sign off because we have, the debate coming up in less than 4 hours, and we will be live after the debate at 10 o'clock Eastern time. I'll take a couple lightning round questions, comments, concerns, hopefully some last minute sign-ups. Sign up for as low as $5 a month, statuscoup.com/join, statuscoup.com/join. And remember, if you are not aware, if you're just tuning in now, tomorrow night, we're actually going to do two members calls this month because we didn't do a call last month. Jen was traveling covering the campaign. I was traveling covering the campaign. So we're going to do 2 calls this month. The first one is tomorrow night, 7:30 Eastern. That's 4:30 Pacific time. We will take your questions, comments, concerns, ideas. We'll laugh, we'll cry, we'll scream. It's going to be wonderful. So sign up as a member today for as low as $5 a month to get the invite to our membership call. And by the way, while I'm live, I am seeing more and more updates. Ohio's governor is talking about closing down bars and restaurants, as is Illinois' governor. And also while I'm live, real quick, we are seeing Joe Biden is suddenly turning a progressive leaf. Joe Biden is suddenly turning over a progressive leaf. It just so happens when he's trying to put the final nail in Bernie's political coffin, Joe Biden just tweeted out, well, I don't know if he tweeted it out, but somebody tweeted it out from his account. Across the country, middle and working class families are being squeezed by debt. This is a massive problem and one that we need all of the best ideas to solve. That's why today I'm adopting 2 plans from Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren to achieve this. First, Bernie has put forward a plan that would make public colleges and universities free for families whose income is below $125,000. It's a good idea, and after consideration, I am proud to add it to my platform. Sure. Second, few people in the country understand how bankruptcy hurts working families more than Elizabeth Warren. Today, I am fully endorsing and adopting her bankruptcy plan, which she called Fixing Our Bankruptcy System to Give People a Second Chance. First of all, what's hilarious about this is so many of the plans Joe Biden is now claiming to adopt are literally plans to fix the bills and laws that he put into place. Elizabeth Warren's bankruptcy plan was basically a repeal of Joe Biden's bankruptcy bill. So it's hilarious that he's like, after consideration, debt is a problem in America. Like, yeah, because you passed laws that made it impossible for people to declare bankruptcy. Because you, as they call it, were the senator from MBNN, the bank in Delaware that bought off Joe Biden. So, honestly, like Hillary Clinton in 2016, don't listen to what people say they're going to do. Don't listen to the plans they say they're adopting. Look at their record and look at their donors. Do you truly believe if Joe Biden is elected president, he's going to fight to make public colleges tuition free for families making $125,000 or less? I don't think so. I don't think so. Do you truly believe that Joe Biden's going to fight to make it easier for families to declare bankruptcy after he pushed the bankruptcy bill? The very thing that he's claiming is a problem in America, debt, and people's ability to declare bankruptcy, he pushed it. You think the banks funding his campaign, the credit card companies funding his campaign, are just magically like, yeah, you're fine. Make it easier for people to declare bankruptcy. So, Joe Biden is clearly trying to play to Bernie Sanders' base. He's clearly trying to give what appears like an olive branch to younger voters to get them over to him. It's up to younger voters and Bernie Sanders voters of all ages if they actually think he's being genuine and is actually going to try to adopt these policies. I don't. I do not. There's nothing in Joe Biden's record that indicates he cares about these issues and will go against the very donors funding his campaign. The other insane thing, and remember, we're 10 members away. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join, statuscoup.com/join. We're 10 members away from 1,850 members. The other wildly outrageous and irresponsible thing that while we were showing that report, Joe Biden tweeted out, again, I don't know if it's Joe Biden that tweeted it out or his campaign. Look what he's tweeting out. The right to vote is the most sacred American right there is. State election officials are working closely with public health officials to hold safe elections. If you're feeling healthy, not showing symptoms, and not at risk of being exposed to COVID-19, please vote on Tuesday. He follows up, if you're exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19 or might be at risk, absentee or vote by mail options are the best way to make your voice heard while protecting your neighbors. What's so outrageous about this? Either Joe Biden, who is claiming he could defeat Donald Trump, doesn't understand the science and doesn't understand what health officials are saying, or he just doesn't care and he's telling voters to risk their health because he knows that the 4 states coming up on Tuesday are favorable to him. First of all, as public health officials are saying on television and all over the place, you don't have to be showing symptoms or even feeling symptoms to have coronavirus. You could be asymptomatic and still have coronavirus. So what he's saying, if you are feeling healthy, not showing symptoms, there are people right now who feel healthy that have coronavirus. It takes several days for symptoms to present themselves. There are also people that might just have a cough, might just be feeling a little off, but not to the full degree. Everybody's immune system is different. So if you have a healthy immune system, coronavirus might not ravage you the same way as somebody who is immunocompromised. So telling people, if you're feeling healthy and not showing symptoms, you're fine, go wait on a line. And also, when he says and not at risk of being exposed, first of all, it's a yes, people above age 50 are more susceptible and more at risk, but it is a misnomer, as people in Italy and elsewhere are finding out, to say people under 50 are not at risk. There are people under 50 that are getting coronavirus. they might have a better chance at recovery than older people. But this suggestion that are not at risk of being exposed is wrong. Secondly, what Joe Biden is basically saying is, hey, if you are somebody who's 30, who's feeling fine, not showing symptoms, go vote. Well, that person, again, who's not feeling symptoms, might be carrying coronavirus and is not feeling symptoms yet, and might be standing in front of or in back of or in next to an older person who is more at risk for this. So it's just so crazy and outrageous that again, I don't think he's actually tweeting this out, but his campaign is. This is going directly against what public health officials are saying. It's dangerous, literally dangerous misinformation, all for political gain. Do you think if the roles were reversed, do you think if he was currently losing to Bernie Sanders by 100 pledged delegates, do you think if the 4 states that are coming up were not looking good for Joe Biden, you think he'd be advising people, go wait on the line? Secondly, think about how ridiculous and bizarre this is. The governors of these states that are not postponing their elections, the governors of these states, Ohio, Illinois, while we were airing Tina's report, are coming out and saying they are going to start closing down restaurants and bars. They are only going to allow restaurants to be open for delivery or pickup, like car delivery. They are going to close down in restaurant dining. So the governors of these states are saying it's okay to go stand on a line at a busy polling place, but not to go inside a restaurant and eat. That's absurd. Of course, they're essentially the same thing. You're around other people. So why would you say we have to close down restaurants in Ohio and Illinois? This is what the governors are saying. But, well, if you're not, it's okay to go wait on the line at a busy polling place. This is absurd, and it's dangerous. And like I said earlier, I don't think Joe Biden is I don't think Bernie Sanders has come out and said the election should be postponed, because I think the media would basically spin it as, oh, well, he knows he's going to lose those states, so that's why he wants it to be postponed. I think it's a lose-lose for Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden could actually provide leadership here by saying, people should not be congregating in one place together where, even if you're not showing symptoms, you could still have it. And if you're not showing symptoms, you could get it from somebody else who has it. But he's not showing leadership. You want to know why? Because this is about political gain. Don't give me the democratic process is sacred and blah, 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 blah. And by the way, there's somebody in Japan, it was reported, that recovered from coronavirus and then got it again. It's just crazy to me. And of course, the media is not going to call him out, that Joe Biden is literally tweeting out directions and guidance that is the opposite of what public officials are saying. Just showing you a response, Walker Bragman, a journalist, says, you could infect others with COVID-19 even if you have no symptoms. COVID-19 is extremely contagious, but 80% of cases are mild to asymptomatic. The mortality rate for COVID-19 is far higher than this year's flu. The elderly and those with comorbidities are most at risk. Delete this, please. This is extremely dangerous. 80% of COVID-19 cases are asymptomatic or mild. That's the vast majority. I mean, the bottom line is, I'm just going to call it like I see it. Joe Biden knows that his base is older voters. You make up your mind why he's telling people to go out and stand on a line and put themselves at risk. Could it be possibly because his voters are the ones that are most at risk here? I mean, I don't want anybody's voters to get sick, but does he know, his voters and that age demographic are more at risk here? I would hope that's not a sociopath, that's a psychopath, if he would knowingly put people at risk for his political gain. But he is either incompetent and doesn't understand the virus and the science, or he's just disregarding it to win these primaries, which is bizarre to me because on paper, it actually looks like his his voters are more likely not to come out because they are the greater at risk. Anyway, going to sign off. We are 10 members away, so last-minute signups are welcome. Statuscoup.com/join. Let me take a few comments, questions, concerns before I sign off. Again, we will be live after the debate tonight at 10 o'clock. And I said it wrong. He was the senator from MBNA. The bank was MBNA. Older folks are not that conservative. Older voters are, correct. Would love some last-minute signups. Hint, hint. Statuscoup.com/join. 10 members away from 1,850. And by the way, I saw a comment, Jordan, tell your girlfriend to stop yelling. It's making me not want to donate. Then don't donate. I find it very lovely and endearing. How dare you? Joe Biden is going to have to stop visiting children and stop smelling their hair. Oh, now. Tisha T, good advice, but to be honest, they don't care. Henry, that was a good dinner. Mail absentee ballots to all registered voters. I agree. I think that would be great. Let me see if I have any others. All right, seeing some. Let's get on the coup train. That's right, get on the coup train. We need you. We could only grow as far as you take us. So sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Now people are saying, we love Anats yelling and signups. Adam, when's the wedding, Jordo? Hey, Adam, don't get me in trouble. Don't get me in trouble. Jameson, I missed 2 super chats from me. Sorry. Let me know what you said and I'll read them. Balthazar 228, $4.99. Did Julius Caesar say Brutus is my friend, although we disagree on a great many issues, like this knife in my back? Balthazar, that was good. You should tell Bernie's campaign that. Jameson, put your comments. If I missed your super chat, I apologize. I'll read it here. All right. Looks like we're finishing with 1,840 members. Remember, you could sign up as a member for as low as $5 a month any time of the day. We love to get as many members as possible on our call tomorrow night. That's statuscoup.com/join. You'll get a link to join our call. It's at 7:30 Eastern Time tomorrow night, 4:30 Pacific. And we will see you a little bit later tonight after the Democratic debate. Thank you for tuning in to this live stream, and I will see you live after the debate, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Peace out.